My game has been selected by Valve for promotion on Steam, and it's all to line up with our new update that drops today. And with that, we've got a 25% discount. So I'm pretty chuffed about this whole situation, and given what this channel's all about, I think now is the time to let you in on how the sausage is made, and why today is actually a pretty big day for us. As a recap, we made The Pale Beyond, a narrative survival resource management game inspired by the heroic age of Antarctic exploration. You can blame a long, rainy night's drive to County Donegal with my dad and the Endurance audiobook for that one. We released in February, and there were pros and there were cons. I mean, a pro. People loved the writing, especially how it felt very natural and snappy. The characters really felt like people, and people enjoyed how there weren't, big walls of prose that made their eyes glaze over. Big con, though. A late-in-the-day bug fix broke our UI in a really unintuitive way. It ended up being a many days long nightmare to fix. Overall, though, we actually sold well. Our publisher was happy, the bug fixes came, and now we're sitting at 91% all-time reviews on Steam, and our recent reviews are between 93 and 97%, which is so exciting. Now, is that just from you guys being nice to us, though? That's always the worry that, yeah, the numbers look good, but we didn't really deserve it. Well, as far as I can tell so far, not really. I mean, most of our summer sale customers, they didn't come from the channels. I know that because I forgot it was the sale. I woke up one day, looked at the sales chart, and saw a humongous spike. This was just people wandering in from the Steam platform. And with those being our most recent cohort of customers, and our most recent review scores being at 97%, yeah, actually, it's going really well for general audiences too. And it's all of this that brings me to today and to Valve. Because first, we've got our free major update, and I think upgrade to the game. It adds epilogues. Now, these involve creating new environments, new scenes. Having a break from drawing ice was very welcome to the team, and thankfully, I can say that we now join the long list of games that have a train scene, so hell yeah to that. Each of our 7 Corecast members have 2 to 5 variations of their epilogue each. Of course, that depends on who lives, who dies, loyalty, and which core ending branch you take. And of course, if someone dies during your trip, they don't get an epilogue, because they're dead. It's a hell of a lot, and it will truly reflect your playthrough. We've also redesigned difficulty of the game. There's a classic mode, which was the original stuff, as well as a normal and a hard mode, and we've also done a bunch of bug fixes and optimization. We've also been able to put together a whole collector's edition, vinyl release, awesome stuff at store.bellular.games, but that's for later. Let's get into the meat of things. So on Steam, there are 2 broad types of discount promotion: self-serve and curated. Now, the former works naturally via the Steam platform. The latter is the stuff where, well, Valve have kind of got to say yes and select you. So, for the former, Steam has billions of page views, an absurdly high number of millions of users. And those people tag games. They use their discovery feeds. Steam tailors their homepage to their interests based on what games they play. Essentially, Valve have developed a strong matchmaking machine. They are incentivized to do this. That's how they earn their cut. I mean, sure, the Epic Game Store's 8812 cut is much better than Valve's 7030, but Epic aren't actually in the business of matchmaking. Right? It's not a particularly smart store. Valve, though, are incredible at showing your games to people who they think will actually like them. So, Valve's business model isn't just being a store. Valve's business model is also almost being like a dating app for gamers, right? They have to think about you, think about what games will you, swipe right on, and doing the matchmaking. Just that, unlike dating apps, Valve actually get money whenever they succeed in matchmaking. Unlike those apps, which is kind of funny. So I think that's the real secret, amazing thing of Valve's business model. Compare them to another store, and it's not really a fair comparison because Valve earns you so many more sales that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So with absolutely nothing going on, we've been getting around 10,000 impressions a day on Steam. And an impression is when your game is shown to somebody in Steam, right? And that means search suggestions. It means being in a little box in their front page, in their discovery queue. Anytime somebody's eye can conceivably see the little banner for your game, that's an impression. Around 8 to 12% for us anyway, of those turn into page views. And a page view is And a page view is obviously when somebody clicks and views your page, and from that you'll get a decent few handfuls of, sales and wish lists every day. However, it's the big events that send numbers to the moon. Recently, of course, we had the Steam Summer Sale, and that gave us, within 12 days, 1.3 million page views, and this led to a decent few thousand sales. Not double-digit thousands, unfortunately. It was under 5,000, I believe, but it was enough to certainly put a smile on our face. That was really awesome. The numbers were odd, though. I mean, looking through some of the page views and traffic, 43% was from Russia. Why is that? 9% was from the USA, 7% was from Germany. So even though some of those numbers look absolutely humongous, the markets that actually turn into revenue for a games company, yeah, those do actually end up making a smaller proportion of those big numbers. So, kind of strange, but hey, it's all nice to have. Now, the second category, okay? That is curated discounting. And you'll actually recognize these things as a Steam user, because I'm talking about daily deals, midweek deals, and weekend deals. Daily deals last for 24 hours of featuring. I believe with midweek and weekend, those can be 72 to 96 hours just off the top of my head. But the way that all these work is that there's only a certain number of slots per, day, per midweek, per weekend, and Valve manage these themselves. So that's either going to be about your relationship, with Valve as a developer, or your publisher's relationship with Valve. And that's one of the real benefits, of course, of having a publisher. They've got years of experience, they've got contacts, and they've got game sense. You know game sense, right? It's when somebody just played a game so much that they have a weird sense. It's a bit like in, say, Quake, how there's that person who's played thousands of hours of Quake, and it just means that they know when to blind fire a rocket at a corner because they just know how people move, and they'll get a frag that way, and everyone will be really impressed. It's a bit like that working with a publisher. They just know things and have intuition that you can't exactly put a price on. At least if they're a good publisher, and thankfully, ours have been. Now, daily deals are the most accessible type there, and they are what we've got for the Pale Beyond. We are going to be 25% off. Now, the actual discount lasts for a week. The daily deal bit, that just refers to us getting a day of homepage promotion. Of course, as you can imagine, that homepage is pretty big. And then, of course, in addition to that, you've got some other things like visibility rounds, which basically are just, you can hit a button, you can get more page views naturally by doing that. However, you're only able to use that for a low, it's 5 times, I think, for a game, right? And then you can't do that anymore. So you've got to be very tactical with how you do those. So that's essentially what's going on for post-launch promotion, discounting, and revenue whenever you put a game out. I mean, as an example, there was a sale on a bunch of Call of Duty games over in the Xbox platform. That coincided with the servers working for those games, and suddenly you have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the one that came out in 2009, absolutely being near the top of, what's being played and sold in the Xbox store. It's pretty crazy. So, our revenue plan for the Pale Beyond, then, is quite simple. Number one, we've got the stuff on store.bellular.games. So this is, as an example, the art book that our team put together. It's lovely, hardback art book, really high quality. And it's not just art, it's the art and the making of. And then we got the vinyl. I mean, this is absolutely beautiful. 2 discs, 4 sides. We got the whole thing professionally remastered, because it turns out you actually need to do that if you're doing a vinyl release and you actually want it to sound good on vinyl. It was a really cool experience. Now, these are, of course, examples of merchandise. Now, there's lots of ways that can happen, right? It can be a deal with your publisher, perhaps. It could be a deal between your publisher and another company. For us, though, we do have like merchandising rights, I suppose. So this is all stuff that's done outside the publishing agreement for our game. And that does mean that, yeah, the revenue from a Pale Beyond art book, the one that, we're doing here, that does go straight to us. So it's one of the best ways that somebody could, as an example, help us out. So you can check out store.bellular.games if you would like to do that and check out some of the cool things that our art team have been able to put together. So there's that side of things. Then the other side, of course, is selling the game in Steam. And that's when it turns away from having a big launch day for a game and into a long-term sales and discounting strategy. That's ultimately how it actually works for a lot of games. So this will be your game going in for, say, a winter sale or a summer sale or developing an update for your game. I mean, right now we're at the stage where, of course, our epilogue is out. Lots of bug fixes and things have happened, so we're now feeling at a stage where, like, things are really, really, really good. However, if it was possible for us to do an update at some point in the future, that's a really good example of when perhaps we could say, hey Valve, we've got an update for our game. Do you think a daily deal would be possible? Or if that's not really the sort of thing that could happen, we could do a custom deal. And that could just go out on Steam. And when something goes out in Steam, it doesn't just get yeeted into the void. It, of course, goes out to your wish listers. Wish lists are really important to the likes of your wish list, conversion rate, and I think wish lists also give the Steam algorithm a bit of a signal, right? If a game has a lot of wish lists, then Steam just kind of knows, oh yeah, people are interested, there's buzz around that. So that's why when an indie developer asks, hey, could you wish list our game, if you're interested in it, that actually does matter to the developer. So whenever you do those major updates, imagine your wish listers and then the people, of course, who follow your community hub in Steam, they're almost like your email subscriber list. The discount, the deal, it goes out to them. News of the update, it goes out to them. And from that, they then may purchase the game. So this is actually one of the ways where a game, once you've actually made it, it works for you over time. As long as you, of course, have a very sound, strategy for how you're promoting your game after the fact. And, of course, most importantly, you have a really engaged audience who feel like they've got a great deal and a really great experience. And with us being, very, we're in the 90s in terms of our audience review, I mean, that means we've actually been able to do that. So for us then, depending on how this daily deal goes, maybe we'll try and secure a midweek or a weekend deal with Valve. It's kind of hard to say. I'm not going to make any bets based on it. Revenue-wise, though, for us as a studio, we're at the tail end of our first tranche of our publisher recoup. And what that basically means is that soon enough, a higher percentage of the revenue from each sale will go to us. It won't be enough to cover our monthly burn rate, which, by the way, is the likes of rent, internet, electricity, wages. But between that amount of money increasing a bit, and then, of course, the likes of merchandise sales and a little pot of prototype funding that I've been able to secure, we should be able to muddle on just fine. And that we're in a position where we are almost through the first tranche of our recoup so soon is actually an amazing thing. And this is where we get to the later stage of this video, and it's the sort of thing where you don't appreciate it till you've been through it, and it's certainly something that you don't really notice as a customer of games. It's something I didn't notice as much as it happens back when, I was just playing games as a hobbyist. It's something I didn't fully appreciate when I was just playing games as a YouTuber. Now that I'm running a studio, man, you really do feel it. So, with indies, most don't succeed, at all. And of those who do succeed, the number one time where they die as a company is after they've released their first game. It's the sort of thing it wouldn't be right for me to say who, but over the last few months, we've certainly been having conversations with people in the industry, including people who represent extremely large groups with thousands of employees. And it's one of those nice things when you're having initial conversations with people and it's not all getting down to business. You do feel like you're more just talking one-to-one with the person, and often if that's somebody with 20 years of industry experience there, I constantly hear back, oh wow, I'm glad you guys are okay after your first game. I've seen so many companies die after their first game, and it always pains me. And this is something that I've heard from so many people in the industry. You hear it from people who work at publishers, you know? You hear it from scouts for publishers, investment groups, all of that. And basically the way that that actually goes is something like this. Now, these are totally made up numbers, but they should be roughly illustrative. Let's say you get $150,000 to make your game. That's a pretty low budget, actually. But anyway, let's say you get that to make your game. Okay, you then start selling your game. You're at a 20-80% split, where the 80% is going to your publisher. And it's like that until you've paid back the amount of money your publisher gave you to make the game. And then let's say after that, it's 50-50 for a period of time until a certain amount of money is paid back again. And after that amount of money is paid, then it's 80-20 in your favor. Now that's the kind of structure that will exist that will allow a publisher to take a sort of relatively risk-adjusted, reasonable bet on an indie company. Because of course, indie companies maybe have only made 1 or 2 games, right? Pretty high rate of failure or games not being that good. So a publisher does have to cover its own bases, because at the end of the day, you're building the game using their money. And then of course, once all those things are paid, maybe the game goes to be 80-20% in the developer's favor. But the thing is that in a situation like that, you could actually never see major returns. What if your game just doesn't sell? What if your game sells $250,000 of revenue? It's not a case of, oh, your budget was $150K, you sold $250K, there you go, collect $100K. No, it doesn't work like that at all, because your publisher's going to be making their cut after the principal's been repaid. You've got, of course, you might think, oh wow, your game has made $350K. 30% of that goes to Valve. And actually, before 30% of that goes to Valve, you could lose 10% of that in refunds, in chargebacks, in taxes. What if there's withholding tax, where you just don't get some of the money for a while? All of these things nibble away at the amount of money that a games company actually has. And this can be such that it can be months and months and months of very little cash flow, even while people are buying your game. And for a lot of companies, they just can't hack it. Without that cash flow, unless they have secured a new deal, they cannot keep the lights on. And if you're ever wondering why a game maybe doesn't get the post-launch support that as a customer you would love to see, or things like that, it's because a developer, when they're releasing their next game, if that's a YOLO and they don't have another pot of money secured, they are playing with dice weighted against their success. It's quite rough. And what I just went through there is absolutely going to be the case for a median published game. A median. The majority of games will have a situation like that. Now, we with Pale Beyond are in the lucky maybe 10 or 20% of companies. We're probably in the top 10 or 15, 20%. I actually looked at it in Steam once. I think we are roughly that. But even with that, finances are still a thing that as the person steering the ship, I really do have to worry about. It's actually only once you get to the top 5 or the top even 1% of games that come out from indies that you start to see those big successes. Not sort of indie games that end up, you know, making the headlines in PC Gamer as an example. So I think the main lesson for me is everyone knows about survivorship bias going into this, but it's only once you're through the other side that you truly appreciate what survivorship bias is. And with that, The Pale Beyond is 25% off on Steam. Right now, it's on the daily deal, meaning it will have front page promotion for a day, and there will be 7 days of it being a quarter off. Additionally, then, we've got a collector's edition box of goodies, which will flash up on the screen. We've also got our art book. And I mean, so many people also loved the soundtrack for the game. We do, of course, have the deluxe vinyl, which, I mean, even just as a piece of art, like as soon as a production run is made, one of these is, I see, the problem is I don't even have a mantelpiece. One of these is going somewhere in my home. So if you want to support us, picking up the game is one of the best ways to do that. As is checking out some of the merchandise on store.bellular.games. And I hope with today's video that I've been able to communicate the sorts of things that running an indie games company that I've had to think about, the sorts of ways that us and our publisher will be thinking about, how the relationship continues. Because it's not just like a publisher's like, release the game, see you later. You and your publisher, we're going to have a 5+ year relationship with Fellow Traveler. Because the game will just keep on selling. And that's something I'm pretty happy about, because Fellow Traveler have been a really fantastic publisher for us. And just go give them a Google. They have a lot of exciting things going on, including Citizen Sleeper 2, which personally I'm extremely excited about. So that's it for the video. If you want to support us, you've got, of course, art book, deluxe vinyl. You can check out store.bellular.games, link down below, as well as our link to the Steam page. Have a wonderful day. Let me know what you think about all of this, and I'll see you next time.